As many of y'all know, I went to Nepal a few months ago with the intent to acquire a business or set up a physical business for the purposes of, doing business, but also to acquire a long-term visa in the country. So I'm back in Thailand now with no business in Nepal. So why is this? Well, upon getting to Nepal and really doing more boots on the ground research, I ran into a lot of problems. The biggest problem being the only real way to get a long-term visa there is to go through their foreign direct investment program. The program has a $250,000 minimum investment requirement and of course some bureaucracy to boot. The issue though, because that's not really a big issue for me, the issue though was upon speaking with a few law firms there and discussing the program with them, it became clear that doing business in Nepal was much worse than I anticipated, and there was a lot more red tape regarding opening a business and operating a business as a foreigner, even if you go through the foreign direct investment program. So I'm saying, I'll get into it in more detail, but I'm saying there was more bureaucracy and red tape than essentially any other country I've visited and considered investing in. The biggest issue by far was the amount of restricted industries the program had. So generally when you go through a citizenship by investment or a residency by investment or one of these foreign direct investment programs, all the red tape is removed, but in the case of Nepal's program, none of it's really removed whatsoever. So like the claim they have with the foreign direct investment program is that you can invest in all these different industries, and so the overview and the big picture view you get from the outside is that, you can invest in a lot of industries. But this isn't really the case because there's a lot of restrictions within those allowed categories that make it where, while on paper you can operate a business engaged in tourism, for example, in practice, almost all types of businesses that you could use that are engaged in tourism, in the tourism industry, are restricted. Sorry, my fridge came on. So essentially all of, with the tourism industry, so you would think you could set up a travel agency. Or how about a trekking guide? It is Nepal. People do trekking a lot there. That's one of the main reasons people go to Nepal. Or maybe someone would want to visit a mountain area, a rural part of Nepal. Maybe you want to do city guide tours. Well, all of these things are restricted. You're not allowed to do those through a tourism business you set up through the foreign direct investment program. So, please answer me in the comments this if you actually have a good answer for this. But what can you actually engage in the tourism industry if all these categories are restricted? The only things I could find is you can operate a hotel potentially, or you can set up a luxury resort property as long as it's somewhat near a city, or some sort of recreational activities. So say a zip line or a amusement park or something like this. So the restrictions around the different industries that they claim are allowed through the program are very strict and comprehensive. So in practice, most of the industries they say you can invest in, you can only invest in 1, 2, maybe 3 types of businesses within the category, and almost everything else is restricted. These restrictions exist for all the so-called allowed industries in the program, and it really comes off that the only foreign direct investment we're really trying to get is mega projects, and for example, hydroelectric power dams have been the main and the primary source of funds for this program. It seems like the entire program isn't actually to attract foreign investors or allow them to do business in Nepal, but just it's a scheme to get mega projects approved and built in Nepal in a more legal fashion. So anyhow, to clarify, the businesses I found you could invest in if you had a sum of capital of, let's say, less than 10 million US dollars would be hotels to some extent, gyms and health clubs, and then like maybe co-working spaces or coffee shops or something along those lines. You could also invest in like start a restaurant or whatever, but those are notoriously bad businesses, and there's lots of competition. There's some mafia stuff going on related to that, at least in Tamil, because I've stayed there probably about a year on and off over the last 5 years. So I'm quite familiar with that circumstance. So those are really the only businesses I found that would be suitable for investment in Nepal. So hotels, gyms and health clubs, co-working spaces or coffee shops. Other than that, it's just either not economical, or it's a restricted program, or it would require a substantial amount of capital, such as 10 million, 20 million, 30 million US dollars. So yeah, there's not a lot of options there. So to clarify a little more, according to the law firms I spoke with, because I spoke with a few different ones, because I just found, quite frankly, the first one and the second one just, while they gave me good answers and they seemed to know what they were talking about, I just couldn't believe the program was this bad. But essentially, some of the restrictions, to give you an idea on it, is you can't open any retail business. So if you're selling products that are not to be consumed immediately, it's not allowed. You can't import or export any products whatsoever from Nepal or to Nepal whatsoever for your business without special approval, and you can't do it yourself. You need an intermediary company fully owned by a Nepali to do it for you. You can't do anything regarding education whatsoever. So that means no language schools, no private schools, nothing to do with education whatsoever. It's just not allowed at all in the program. You also can't provide any so-called personal services. So this is any service that is provided to a client or a customer, and this doesn't really have any big restrictions. So that means hair salons, consulting services, cleaning services, maid services, childcare services, doesn't matter. All of them are restricted under the program. So really, I'm being honest when I say those are the only businesses that seemed viable and economical: gyms and health clubs, co-working spaces and coffee shops and hotels. Everything else is pretty much restricted from what it seems like and what I discussed with the lawyers in the country. This all leads me to an unfortunate conclusion, which is that Nepal doesn't actually want foreign investors to invest in the country, and this program was not actually designed to attract foreign investors. Maybe this is not the case, but this is the impression I got when I was in Nepal trying to go through the program and talking to firms who handle the program. All of the firms seem to suggest, and some even outright say, I was the only person who contacted them that was not a multinational company for this program. So my impression is that this program, even though it's the minimum claimed is $250,000, and you don't need to be a multinational company, my impression is that this program is actually only for multinational companies as well as mega projects to be built by foreign governments. This is not a serious program for investors. At least that's what I believe now after trying to go through the program. And I don't know, when I was there, I didn't meet a single person, no matter how hard I tried, who actually also did this program. Every single foreigner who was operating a business in Nepal and living there was doing so on tourist visas or marriage visas, and then had everything in a Nepali person's name, and they were a complete silent partner. So I don't really think this program is meant to attract foreign investors or investment in the country, if I'm being honest. Maybe it's just the amount of bureaucracy Nepal has, and the program manager just could not make it viable, because there's been a lot of discussion by the program manager and different people involved in the program about like Cambodia receiving lots of foreign investment and how to improve their economy and situation quite significantly, and how they would like to mirror that program in Nepal. However, at least how this program is set up currently, they seemingly haven't tried to do that, or they have been restricted in actually doing that. Because at this moment, it doesn't seem like it's feasible to invest in Nepal whatsoever, unless it's a mega project, or one of the few industries I mentioned before, which I will get into, why they're not even very viable now. You know what, before I get into those, I'd like to cover one of the other issues with this program. Normally for a business visa or direct investment program, they want you to provide the minimum capital to start up a business. So usually how these programs work is you invest, the program's requirements are $250,000 into Nepal. So normally how this would work is you open up a company and you put up starting capital of $250,000 and you transfer this into the company in Nepal. And then that counts. As long as you start investing and operating the company, this is suitable. You had $250,000 startup capital, so this is fine. In Nepal, for whatever reason, the restriction is not like that. They want to see proof that within, I think it's either 6 months or a year, you have actually spent the full $250,000 investment in the country. So that means you completely depleted all of that and you had to either invest even more to have cash in your bank and continue the operations of the company, or you are already generating profit and are in a suitable position to continue doing business. So this is quite strange. One thing I noticed that no other program that I've found anywhere in the world that I've encountered and considered doing functions like this. So that was a little off-putting as well, especially because I've been in Nepal for over a year in total, on and off over the last 5 years as a tourist. And so I know the prices of things. And to spend $250,000 in Nepal is obscenely difficult. I really can't think of a business you could actually do that with unless it's a mega project or you're building a hotel, dealing with construction, something like this. Otherwise, if you're renting a property, which generally because of the red tape you will have to be renting, if you're doing that, it's essentially impossible to actually spend that amount of money within the first 6 months or a year. So again, I don't really know how this program is, it doesn't feel like this program is actually meant to attract foreign investors like the ones that invested in Cambodia, Thailand, and other places through similar business and direct investment programs. So to be clear, unless it's a mega project, the only way really around this $250,000 minimum spend that I could come up with is I was going to, instead of starting a business, I would have to acquire an existing business. And that presents another issue. In Nepal, the markets for acquiring businesses are very inefficient, and most businesses don't make much money. Part because a lot of the business managers and owners are just quite incompetent. Standards are quite low. But part also just because of the nature of doing business in Nepal. Usually businesses are relatively small in size or scale, unless they do with restricted industries like education, when they're quite big. But most other businesses are quite small. So to acquire a business that's making thousands of dollars of profit a month, that you could actually pay say $200,000 for and then do some renovation with the remaining $50,000 you have to spend, to do that would be exceptionally difficult to find. The only real exception would be acquiring a hotel and refurbishing it. That's really the only thing that seems somewhat suitable. But it's not a mega project. Okay, now with all that being said already, let's get back to the other issues with doing business in Nepal. So, keeping all of that in mind, I found something I was actually willing to buy. It was a health club fitness center that was huge. Had basketball courts, swimming pool, full gym, had trainers, it had all sorts of stuff. It had a small cafe, had a supplement store, all sorts of stuff going on in there. huge property. It wasn't making a ton of money, but I saw the potential in it, and I knew I could invest a little more, fix it up, because I know gyms and fitness, and I also had someone else who was willing to invest with me who operated gyms and health clubs in the past. So we were going to do a deal together. So the issue is that there are a lot of other restrictions in Nepal regarding doing business, other than just those restricted industries. To be clear, this was the only business I could find that would be suitable for the program. Everything else was just too cheap. One of the reasons was because of all the hotels I could find, pretty much all of them rent their building for around, say, 100,000 Nepali rupees to a couple hundred thousand Nepali rupees, up to that per month. So they don't actually own their buildings, and the building owners don't want to sell it with the business, and it's just, you can't actually acquire most hotels in Nepal like this, due to them being in buildings that are rented. So anyhow, I found this one health club, fitness center for like $300,000, and I was going to get it. So why didn't I? Well, as I hinted earlier, it's because of the other restrictions doing business in Nepal as a foreigner has. So most of the actual profit from the health club, like most health clubs actually, was generated not from the actual gym memberships themselves, but rather the extra things offered on top. So a lot of the profits were generated from the supplement and like protein and all this sort of stuff that they were selling there. Well, the issue is you can't sell as a foreigner products that are not being consumed or intended to be consumed at the property and aren't ready to be consumed. So selling the protein powders and like the other vitamins and supplements they had, it would have to go if we acquired it. And that was the majority of the profit just right there. According to the lawyers as well, a lot of the personal services, a lot of the coaching and all of that sort of stuff would have been classified as personal services, and thus we could not even manage that either. And like this went on and on through pretty much everything that actually was generating a profit from the health club. And it made it where if we were going to buy it, we would have had to separate those entities off or close them down and then rent these spaces out for what was actually profitable. Rent them out to a Nepali partner or something like this. And it would have just been a lot of bureaucracy and headache. Either would have been not 100% by the book, or it would have been highly risky. And it just made it where the entire situation just didn't make sense. So basically, because of the restrictions on personal services, we might have not been able to provide coaching anymore or any sort of like swim lessons, anything like this. We would have also probably had to close down, or definitely according to the lawyers with this, close down the like sports massages and sports therapy sort of stuff going on at the place. We would have had to stop selling the protein powders, vitamins, and all of that, and only start selling ready-to-drink, pre-made shakes, which weren't selling very well, and they already tried at the property. It just didn't make any sense. Economically, it didn't make sense like this. So with all that, like, why would I go through that bureaucratic nightmare and take on all this risk when it just financially wouldn't even make sense anymore? To do business in a country that seems to just have red tape everywhere if you're a foreigner and not want foreigners to actually do business in the country, even if they have this foreign direct investment program. It doesn't make sense to me. So I didn't go through with that deal. Okay, so that's going to be all for this video. Unfortunately, as I've described, the situation in Nepal was not as I hoped. And while there is like fantastic investment opportunities if you're a local person, you can get a fantastic return. There's lots of inefficiencies there. The only way a foreigner can actually take advantage of it is to go about it illegally, being a silent partner, and putting everything in a Nepali person's name and maybe having some sort of debt relationship with them to trap them in case they go against you in a business, try to take it over. So I'm not comfortable doing that. That's not a situation I'd like to be in. So at this point, I'd say Nepal is uninvestable due to just quite how bad the foreign direct investment program is currently, or at least how bad it seems to be according to all the lawyers I talked with. Maybe it's not actually this way if I was in contact with one of the officials that started the program and manages it, but at least the law firms in Nepal, maybe they're just incompetent and they don't want to actually handle smaller clients that aren't mega projects, and so they say things that aren't true. I don't know. But regardless, it doesn't really seem like a suitable place to invest currently as a result. I still love Nepal as a country and will be glad to return, like I have been pretty much every year for 1 to 2 months, to go hiking in mountains, see friends, and just enjoy the country. Assuming I don't get banned for making this video and criticizing this foreign direct investment program, that is. Nepal is a great place for tourism and all that. I'm a little concerned with a lot of the bureaucracy and red tape seemingly increasing in regards to tourism. But as long as that doesn't get too bad, I'll still continue visiting the country. But it doesn't really seem to be a place to do business. It seems to be a place to see some friends, hike some mountains, enjoy some nature, and leave. So yeah, with all that being said, bye-bye.